Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us to today's training where we will discuss how you can support your child's learning and more specifically, how to use prompting strategies. My name is Vera Caro Michelle, and I am a behavior specialist and a school psychologist here at WOCSEP.
Hi, I'm Artemisa Torres, and I'm also a behavior specialist here at WOCSEP.
Some of you may know about WOCSEP, but some of you may not be familiar with it. Let's talk a little bit about who we are. WOCSEP is your special education local planning agency who works in conjunction with your school district to provide a continuum of services and placements, staff and parent education, interagency collaboration, and administrative support that will ensure a high quality, individualized, free, and appropriate public education for individuals with disabilities. And you can learn more about us in our website at wocsep.org. The information presented as part of this parent presentation series reflects a broad introduction of the topics covered, incorporating best practices and evidence-based practices. A list of resources will be included for further information on these topics. Please feel free to contact us or reach out to your own school district regarding questions specific to your child's education. We have 3 objectives today. We are going to talk about prompting. We are going to learn a little bit about the power of pause and how to apply tell, show, do while you support your child's learning. So let's get started. Some of you may be familiar with the strategy or the term, but what does this really mean? Prompting. Prompting is an applied behavior analysis method used to teach any skill or a portion of a skill. A prompt is defined as a method to develop stimulus control. When we talk about stimulus control, we mean that the prompt or supplemental stimulus, when paired with the antecedent, will eventually control the behavior. More specifically, prompts are added antecedents or clues. If you would like to learn more about antecedents, behavior, and consequences, watch the video here in our website titled Understanding My Child's Behavior. In a nutshell, antecedents are something that occurs right before the behavior and that it triggers that behavior that will follow it. This is identified in this orange box here. We will use the same 3 steps to set up a learning trial or a teaching trial. Let's learn about this further. A learning trial can also be broken down into these A, B, Cs, and this is known as the 3-step prompting procedure. Let's analyze this 3-step prompting procedure some more. In this case, we want to teach the child to read the word cat when instructed to read it, except the child is not able to read the word independently yet, and therefore we add a prompt. Let's look at each step closely. The antecedent, which is the gray box, is the instruction that you give the child, the instruction that tells your child what they are expected to do. If the child is unable to perform the task independently, then the prompt will be added here as well. Let's talk about our antecedent or how to deliver instructions. First, we want to keep in mind that we should avoid asking our children to follow an instruction. When we present an instruction as a question, we allow our children to respond with no. Obviously, no is probably not the response we are looking for when we give an instruction. But if we pose the instruction as a question, then no is an appropriate response, so be aware of that. Instead, what you want to do is you want to present a clear and concise instruction that tells your child what you want them to do. Make the instruction short and simple so that your child understands the instruction. For example, the difference between, can you write your name, please, versus write your name. In the first instruction, that is posed as a question. In the second instruction, the instruction is direct, short, and clear. Then we move on to the behavior. That's the red box. This is your child's response. or the response that you are seeking based on the instruction or what you ask them to do in the antecedent. It is important that you know exactly what you want your child to do. Knowing the correct response that you are looking for will guide the delivery of your response to your child's behavior, which is the last part here, the consequence, the green box. The feedback or reinforcement that you provide depending on the child's response or the behavior. If your child responds correctly, then we would deliver reinforcement such as praise or a desired item. If your child does not respond or does not engage in the behavior you were looking for, you want to deliver corrective feedback, such as that's not it. Or if you ask the child to write their name and instead they draw a circle or don't write anything at all, then we can say, you didn't write your name, let's try that again. So let's look at the example written here. The antecedent is that the parent gives the instruction of Mary, read this word. And then she adds the additional antecedent or prompt of sounding out each letter for her as she places the book with the word cat in front of the child. It looks something like this. Mary, read this word. K-a-t. In the behavior, the child then would read the word cat once the parent sounds out each letter. And the consequence then is that the parent gives the positive feedback to Mary, such as, that's right, that's the word cat, good reading. In some cases, when our children are learning new skills, telling them or teaching them may not be sufficient for them to acquire the skill or to learn the concept. And in those cases, we may need to model or show them or do it with them, perhaps hand over hand. Prompting moves in a continuum from least intrusive to most intrusive or vice versa. Today, we will learn about 3 of the prompts in the hierarchy, and Artie will discuss this some more for us in a bit. But first, let's talk a little bit about why we use prompting. Prompting provides support to our children if and when they need it, especially when they are learning a new skill. Think about a skill that you have taught your child, perhaps tying their shoe, playing a sport, writing letters or words, or making a meal. Did your child learn the steps independently, or did they need you to show them or verbally guide them, or perhaps help them hand over hand to do it? Prompting also reduces frustration for a child, especially when they are being asked to perform a difficult task for them. If support or prompts are added, then a reduction in frustration is noted. The use of prompting also increases correct responses, since prompting or the cues provided will allow the student to be more successful when responding to these, such as in the example discussed before of sounding out the letters for the child so that they can be more successful at reading the word correctly. Prompts should be used when the child is learning a new skill that you know is difficult for him or her. We can also use prompting when you want the child to learn the correct steps to perform a task without making any mistakes, and also when your child is performing a task or activity, but he or she continues to make errors. Prompting is very helpful with individuals who do not consistently learn or are able to do all the steps in a specific activity. Some important things to remember when we are using prompting as a strategy is that when we are teaching someone, and especially our kids, sometimes we get frustrated because they are not understanding or learning the information. And we tend to repeat ourselves or rephrase the directive that we're giving them or the instruction that we are saying to them in a different way, or continue to ask the same question over and over, causing frustration not only for you, but for your child as well. In these situations, it is important to remember to pause after you give an instruction before you rephrase or repeat yourself. You must give the child time to respond to the instruction or request, and really consider the child's ability and speed to process information. There are children that take only but a few seconds where others may take much longer to process the information or the instruction that you are giving them. So allow for that to take place. Providing help too quickly or too frequently may teach your child that they do not need to try because you eventually do it for them or provide them with the correct response. This can also create frustration for the child. Understanding the power of pause and knowing what prompts to use and how to use them is the key to a successful learning trial, and Artie will discuss this further.
So before we move forward with the tell, show, do three-step prompting procedure, it is important to note that there is an entire prompting hierarchy that can be used to help teach our children. When we talk about supporting our children, we may consider the entire prompting hierarchy, but for today's presentation, we will only discuss the three-step prompting procedure. Now that we have reviewed the ABCs of behavior, when we consider implementing prompting, we will review the three-step prompting procedure, tell, show, do. Tell, show, do is a simple three-step prompting procedure that is easy to remember. This is the sequence you will use to prompt your child to ensure your child is successful with the instruction being delivered. Tell, show, do is simply tell your child what to do. Give your child an instruction. 2, show your child what you want them to do. And 3, do. Physically help your child to do what you want them to do. Let's look at each a little bit more closely. Tell. This is where you tell your child what to do, or in other words, give your child an instruction, such as write your name. You would then give your child time to process the instruction and follow the instruction by waiting about 5 seconds for your child to comply. If your child complies, you will provide reinforcement. But if your child does not follow the instruction or comply, you will give feedback and move on to the show prompt. Here you can see that same exact procedure we discussed in the visual depiction of the tell procedure. Now we will move on to show. We are now at show because your child did not follow your instruction when you told them what to do, So now you need to show your child what you want them to do. First, repeat the instruction while simultaneously providing a model, or in other words, you're demonstrating exactly what you want them to do, or a gesture prompt, such as pointing. Wait for your child to comply about 5 seconds as discussed above. If your child complies, again, provide reinforcement. But if your child does not follow the instruction or comply, you will give feedback and move on to the do prompt. Again, here is a visual depiction of what the show procedure looks like for your reference. So you will see at the top that you will deliver the instruction with the model or gesture, and you move on. The next step would be that you wait the 5 seconds for your child to comply or respond. And then you're going to go either 2 ways. You'll see that if they follow the instruction, you will give reinforcement. But if you go the other way and they do not follow the instruction, you will give feedback and move on to do. If your child complies after you've delivered the show prompt, you are done here. But let's say your child did not comply even after providing the show prompt, which means we need to provide further support and move on to do. The do prompt is the last prompt of the tell, show, do prompting procedure, which is also the most intrusive because you will be providing maximum help to ensure your child completes the instruction. In the do prompt, you will physically help your child to do what you want them to do. First, you will repeat the instruction while at the same time physically helping or prompting your child to complete the instruction. You want to make sure you provide minimal attention or verbal input while providing the physical help. When your child is done completing the instruction, provide verbal acknowledgement of the task completion in a neutral tone, such as, that is writing your name. Your child does not receive reinforcement after this prompt because they received the physical prompting, which is the most intrusive and maximum help to complete the task. Here is a visual depiction of the do prompting procedure. You can see that it is much shorter than the previous visuals, which is due to the fact that your child only has one option to respond, which is complying with the instruction, because you physically helped your child complete the instruction. Once your child completes the instruction, you are done with the 3-step prompting procedure and you can move on to the next instruction or activity. Let's look at this video example of what the Tell, Show, Do procedure looks like.
3-step guided compliance with an academic task. In this first video, watch the child in the blue hat.
Trace A like me. Trace letter A.
We're going to watch the video again. This time, watch Mom's behavior.
All right, Christina, trace A.
Mom first delivers the task direction.
Trace A
When the
like
child
me.
does not comply, she models the behavior. When the child still does not comply, Mom
letter
moves to a
A.
physical prompt. Notice she does not give any attention to the problem behavior. Remember, in 3-step guided compliance, we want to tell, show, and do without giving verbal attention to the problem behavior.
So what did you see? How does Mom deliver the show prompt to the child when the child does not comply to the instruction, trace A? Take a second to think about that. So if you thought Mom did the show prompt by modeling tracing A, or in other words, tracing the letter A, you're correct. That's exactly how she implemented the show prompt. We have 5 reminders. When providing your child help in the form of prompts, remember we want to 1, give clear direct instructions, 2, wait 5 seconds for the child to respond, 3, only prompt if the child is not responding or responding incorrectly, 4, reinforce correct responding, and 5, practice makes perfect. If this is a new skill your child is learning, having multiple opportunities to practice the skill will help your child learn the skill.
Okay, so let's summarize and review the takeaways from this presentation. The first, prompting is an important ABA strategy that we can use to support the learning of new skills. 2, the learning trial can be broken down into antecedent, behavior, and consequence. 3 of the prompts can be understood as tell, show, do. And the 4th takeaway here is keep the 5 reminders in mind when using prompts. Okay, whenever we discuss prompting as a strategy, there are a few questions that we receive often surrounding this topic. We would like to address a couple of these questions in the interest of providing you with answers in case you yourself had those same questions. One of the questions that we get reads as follows. I've heard that prompting can be good to help my child learn, but it can also be bad because they never learn to do the activity independently. If I continue to help them, so which is correct? What should I do? As we have discussed today, prompting is a procedure that is very helpful when we are teaching a new activity. When we know the task is difficult for our kids, or if your child continues to make the same mistakes when performing that task. It is important to provide the support that they need only when they need it, and not when they have the skill to do it, but they choose not to do it. So it is important to differentiate between those two. In the case of the student not wanting to perform the skill, the prompting procedure would not be an appropriate procedure to use. Also, in instances when the procedure has been used appropriately and the child has mastered the task, using that prompt, it is time now to remove that prompt, as our goal should always be to allow the child to perform that task independently whenever possible. If you'd like to learn how to do this, you can learn more about fading prompts. The second question will be responded by Artie. Go ahead, Artie.
So the next question we typically receive is, what do I do when my child does not do what I ask him to do, even after I give him the same instruction over and over? So there are a few things you should consider here. First, does your child understand the language you are using? If not, consider simplifying the language if necessary, or changing the words so that your child understands the instruction. You may also consider whether or not your child has a skill you are asking them to perform. If your child is learning a new skill, the 3-step guided compliance we just reviewed can help your child avoid mistakes or reduce frustration. If your child already has a skill but is simply not following instructions, the 3-step guided compliance will help your child learn that he or she needs to follow instructions when given. In other words, it will teach compliance. Repeating an instruction multiple times will not help your child complete the instruction. In this instance, your child will require prompting, and the tell, show, do procedure is a simple prompting procedure you can follow to help your child complete the instruction you are giving them. Here are the references used for tonight's presentation, which you can also reference as needed. And that concludes today's presentation. Vera and I would like to thank you for attending. Thank you and have a great day.